Hi, it's Sally. Welcome back. The last 2 weeks, we've been talking about timelines, how you're constantly choosing which version of your life you're stepping into. We talked about the difference between the negative timeline and the growth timeline. And today, we're talking about how you actually shift timelines. It's not dramatic, it's not a big leap. It's not some massive transformation that happens overnight. It's about planting seeds, small intentional actions that you do consistently. And that's what creates real lasting change. So let's talk about that. The seed metaphor. Think about planting a seed in the ground. You don't plant it today and see a tree tomorrow, that's not how it works. You plant the seed, you water it, and you give it some sunlight and you tend to it. And for a while, nothing visible happens. The seed is underground and it's germinating, roots are forming, but you can't see anything yet, nothing at all. Now, if you judge the seed by what you can see on the surface, then you'd think nothing was happening. But everything is happening just beneath the surface. And then one day, a tiny green shoot breaks through the soil. And if you keep watering it and you keep tending to it and keep showing up, then that sprout will become a plant. And then the plant becomes a tree. So your timeline works the same way, okay? Every small intentional action that you take is a seed, really. Every time you choose a growth timeline thought instead of a conditioned one, that's a seed. Every time you set an intention before reacting, that's a seed. And every time you take one aligned action, even when you're scared, that's a seed. And for a while, you might not see anything, no changes on the surface at all, okay? Your life might look the same and you might still feel stuck. You might even just wonder if any of this is even working. But underneath, the seed is germinating, roots are forming, and your subconscious is actually programming. Your true self is starting to emerge. You can't see it yet. And most people will quit right there, right before the breakthrough, because they're judging what they can see on the surface. But if you keep planting seeds, keep showing up, keep choosing the growth timeline, and keep taking small, aligned actions, the sprouts will come. And then the growth will become visible and it accelerates. So, what seeds look like? Okay, so let's talk about what they actually look like in real life, okay? Because people think transformation requires huge action, big changes, dramatic shifts, but that's not how it really works. Seeds are small. A seed is questioning one conditioned thought, not all of them, just one today, okay? Is that true or is that programming? 5 minutes of intentional breathing before you check your phone. That's it, just 5 minutes. Not an hour long, meditation, just 5 minutes of choosing your energy before the world sets it for you. One aligned action that you may be avoiding. Oh, sending that message or making that call, maybe starting that project, not finishing it, just starting it. One small step. Saying no to one thing that drains you. Not everything, just one thing. You know, this week, creating space for what actually matters to you and saying yes to one thing that scares you, even if you don't feel ready, even if your conditioned mind is screaming. Just one yes. Okay. Choosing a truth-based thought over a fear-based one. I trust myself instead of I don't know what I'm doing. Now, these feel small and they may feel insignificant, and your conditioned mind will tell you that they don't matter, that you don't need to do more, or be more, or change more. But that's the conditioning talking. And that's the part of you that learned transformation has to be hard, dramatic, and exhausting. Now, your true self knows better. She knows that small, consistent seeds create forests. She knows that 1 degree shift repeated every day changes your entire direction. Just like when a rocket flies to the moon, along the way it frequently shifts, and it does that to end up on the moon. And that's what these seeds do. Small corrections, consistent adjustments, completely different destination. She knows that the most powerful transformation happens quietly, slowly, and beneath the surface. So stop waiting for this big moment, and just start planting these small seeds. The compound effect. Here's what happens when you plant seeds consistently. Okay, week 1, you plant seeds. Nothing visible changes, you might even doubt it's working. Week 2, you're still planting seeds and it still feels the same. Your mind might say this isn't working. But then week 3, you start noticing these small shifts. A thought that you would have believed before, you now question. Or a pattern you would have repeated, you now catch yourself in. Week 4, the shifts become more obvious. You're making different choices now, and different opportunities start to show up, and something just feels a little bit different. Now we're going into month 2 to 3. The growth actually becomes visible now, and your life starts to look different. You realize you're not the same person you were when you first started. Now, going into month 6, you look back and you think, God, who was I? You barely recognize yourself. And the seeds have grown into something tangible now and something undeniable. This is the compound effect. Small actions repeated consistently create exponential results. But only if you don't quit during that invisible phase, Only if you trust the process when you can't see the growth yet. And only if you keep planting seeds, even when your conditioned mind is saying to you it's not working. Okay? So I'll tell you a little bit about when I planted seeds, which changed everything for me. Okay. Quite a few years ago, I was living on the negative timelines and I was stuck, reacting and running on autopilot. And I really did want to change. But every time I tried, I would just go big. I tried to overhaul my entire life all at once. And I committed to meditation an hour a day. I used to write every morning, you know, exercising, reading, and creating content and building a business. And I was doing this all at the same time, big, you know. And I guess I'd last about a week, maybe two if I pushed it. And then I just burnt out, and I felt so fed up and I felt like a failure. And then I just go back to my old patterns. And the negative timeline would feel even more permanent then. Now, this happened over and over again, for years, until I started to look at things in the way of seeds. And I stopped trying to transport everything at once, and I started planting one little seed at a time. So the first seed I planted was 5 minutes of breathing every morning before I checked my phone, you know, and that was it. I didn't do an hour, and I just did the 5 minutes. And every day I did that, and even when I didn't feel like it, even when my mind said it wasn't enough. Although it wasn't long before those 5 minutes turned into 15 to 20 minutes, but it still felt like 5 to 10 minutes. And I really look forward to them now. Honestly, I can't start the day without doing that. Now, after a few weeks, I added another seed and I started questioning one conditioned thought a day. Just one. I'm not good enough would come up. And instead of believing it, I would just ask myself, is this true? Then I added another seed, one small aligned action a day, something my true self wanted to do, but my conditioned mind was just really afraid of. Now, some days it could have been sending a message I'd been avoiding, and some days it was creating something, and other days it was just sitting in silence when my conditioning just wanted to distract and take me off rail. Now, none of these felt significant at the time, and to be quite honest, my life looked the same on the outside, but beneath everything was changing. My subconscious was reprogramming. My true self was getting stronger, and the conditioning was beginning to lose its grip. And then one day, I noticed that I was more different. I wasn't reacting the same way, and I wasn't thinking the same thoughts. I wasn't making the same choices either. Those seeds had grown, and I hadn't even realized it was happening. And now, as I've said before, I'm building this community, I'm creating music, I'm making videos, and I'm living a life that actually feels like mine now. Not because I had one big breakthrough, but because I planted these little seeds every day, even when I couldn't see the growth. And I'm still planting them every day because that's how you stay on the growth timeline. Small seeds, consistent action, and just trust the process. So here's what I invite you to do for this week, okay? Choose your seeds. Pick 1 to 3 small seeds that you're going to plant every day this week. Not 10 and not everything you think you should do. Just 1 to 3 that actually feels aligned with your true self. So here's some examples like 5 minutes of intentional breathing before your day starts, or question one conditioned thought, take one small aligned action, write one page about what your true self wants. Say no to one thing that drains you, and yes to one thing that scares you. Move your body with intention for 5, maybe 10 minutes, or speak one truth you've been holding back. Anyway, pick what resonates, not what sounds impressive, but what resonates with you. Now, plant them daily, okay? Every day this week, plant your seeds no matter what. Not when you feel like it, and not when it's convenient, but every day, even if it feels small, and even if it feels insignificant, and even if your mind says it's not enough, okay? Just trust the process. The growth is happening underneath. Now, track the seeds. If it helps, keep a simple little tracker. Put a note on your phone or on a piece of paper and just check off each day that you plant your seeds. It's not about perfection, remember, it's just about consistency. And it's about showing your subconscious that I'm serious about this. I'm choosing the growth timeline, one seed at a time. Okay? And notice, don't judge. Now, at the end of the week, just notice how you feel. And you might not see any dramatic changes yet. That's okay. That's normal. Okay. Think of it as the seeds are germinating, and then trust that. And then plant them again next week and the week after that. This is how you shift timelines. This is how you uncover your true self. And this is how transformation actually happens. Small seeds, consistent action, and trust. So, as always, if you're serious about this work and you want support while you're planting your seeds, then I'm building a community where we do this work together with real conversations and real growth. The link is in the description below, and I would love for you to join me. Now, next Monday, we're going to be talking about the revolution timeline, how your individual seeds create collective change. So, see you then.